council meeting at 6 p.m., you might feel sort of out of the loop. And I really think that city council and city leaders and city staff need to make sure that we are engaging people and where they're at. We need to meet people where they're at instead of expecting them to come to us.
So, so my top three priorities, if I'm elected to the next city council, are first implementing what I'm calling responsive budgeting. And that means after we pay our people, because we always pay our employees first, we prioritize public safety, road maintenance, parks, and the library. Second priority is services and arts grants programs. And getting back to sponsoring the tree light ceremony, if we had money for fancy mailers and billboards to sell taxes, we have money to support the nonprofits and arts in this community. And third is driving economic development. We need to support our small businesses. We need to streamline permitting. We need to attract new industries that are going to revitalize the downtown and the industrial park. I think these priorities reflect what I've heard when speaking to voters across town this election. Thank you.
Thank you, Lionel. So my top three priorities for Benicia: safety, fiscal responsibility, infrastructure improvement. I believe in balanced budgets, first of all. None of these other things will be able to support anything if we don't have a balanced budget and we don't have enough revenue coming in. So my focus will be to streamline the processes and look for ways in which we can increase the revenue streams that we have, right size our revenue streams that I've talked about, invert the general sales tax and the selective sales tax, invert those two, and then invert that with the property tax. So by focusing on projects that will allow us to increase our revenue, that will allow us to sustain our Benicia that we know and love, and it will also allow us to develop all these other programs that we would like to see. We'll be able to have greater outreach in the community. We'll be able to support our underserved population. We'll be able to reach out and include more people.
Thank you, Franz. Question number 8 will start with Christina. Question 8 is, what is your position on the preservation of open space in Benicia?
So first, I was endorsed by the Sierra Club as well as the Orderly Growth Committee of Solano County because I do believe that we need to preserve our green spaces and our open spaces. Solano County is really distinctive for the fact that we have such a mix of urban environment, open space, and agriculture in Solano County. And Benicia, obviously, everyone knows we love our green spaces. Development needs to preserve those unique opportunities and the diverse elements of the city. And Benicia voters approved an urban growth boundary in 2022 to make sure that we continue to do that. So I don't think we have a risk of sort of urban sprawl that some of our other communities have because of that approval. We do need strategic development. We need to focus on infill development. We need to focus, and the key word that I've said all along is strategic development. We need to be making sure that we're really focused on that development, that will help us retain those open spaces.
Speed talk.
So I also believe in preserving Benicia's open spaces because it maintains our community's identity. It also supports our environment, but most importantly, protects us from costly sprawl. Likewise, I supported Measure K in 2022. I think it's important that we ensure responsible development, which is on the horizon, and one that also respects the natural resources that have been here way before anyone wanted to come build in our community. I think protecting the open spaces enhances the quality of life, promotes passive recreation, whether it's bird watching, walking, hiking, and so forth. But in the end, the balance is crucial. The balance is crucial. We have to preserve the open space because we have to, while we plan for the future, we also have to respect our past. Thank you.
Thank you. So I absolutely love our open spaces. Everybody here does. It's probably one of the reasons why we live in Benicia. But while we do love our open spaces, our open spaces are about 25% of the land mass in Benicia. And while opinions vary among pundits, I believe that the optimal percent of open space for city living to accommodate people is 15 to 20%. I believe that we could reduce our open space by only 5%, so we bring it down to 20% of the land mass in Benicia. This will open up about 400 acres for development that we sorely need, this growth that we're talking about. And this may be another thing you're saying, well, why is this guy saying he wants to take away my open spaces? But these are the hard decisions that must be made in order to sustain the Benicia that we all know and love. These are the things that must be done to provide the solid foundation on which to build the future of Benicia.
So as a planner, I think I would always start with infill and mixed-use housing or any type of development. I'd love to have it in downtown. I'd love to have it in the Eastern Gateway Corridor. I think as far as open space, if you were paying attention during our housing element process, there was a series of sites that were considered as part of that housing element. We heard loud and clear from the community, do not touch our open space parcels. Now, I do want to make a clear distinction between open space and land that is currently non-developed and already zoned for, like the Casino property. That's not open space. That's already planned and could be developed within our general plan. I also want to say that as our public survey came out, our Parks and Trails Master Plan identified, public trails and parks within open space was the community's #1 priority. We have 28 parks. We have an amazing asset and a recreational amenity because of our topography. So maintaining that is critical to our community's identity.
Question number 9 will begin with Lionel. Our streets and roads continue to deteriorate. How do you plan to improve and pay for these critical infrastructure needs if Measure F doesn't pass?
Thank you. I'm going to say it again. We can't keep turning to the voters every time there's a budget shortfall. The foundation for road funding begins by spending every penny of the 2 gas taxes you already pay. In this current budget, it's about 1.5 million. It grows about 200,000 to 300,000 each year. From there, we need to delicately comb through the discretionary budget in our current budget, which currently, after we pay for our employees, stands at $19 million in this budget. Where I would start is I would look at the $9 million we're currently spending on outside sources. There should be money in there that we can reallocate to roads without impacting the delivery of essential services. And the third place I would look at are the franchise fees, utility companies, in particular, Republic Services. There are millions there. Again, we need to look at those and see where we can reallocate those funds without impacting the delivery of essential services. I think by prioritizing our resources, demonstrating some discipline, we can do this without burdening our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Lionel. So as I mentioned before, if we do not pass Measure F to fix our roads, I believe it will have to resort to other methods of funding, bond issues and so forth, which are one-time revenue streams used to fund maintenance. This is not sustainable. However, in the short term, I don't see any other way where we can be able to raise the kind of money that's needed to already fix our streets in the state to which they already are. We already know that the surveys have been out, and I don't remember the exact rank that we're in, but our streets are ranked not very highly with regard to, in reference to other cities around us. And the streets is part of the infrastructure, it's part of the foundation that makes Benicia what it is, and it's going to keep people here, and it's going to attract people here. It's such an essential part. It's almost as essential as our other things that we consider important for Benicia. So that's why I do support Measure F, and I hope it passes.
Thank you.
So if Measure F doesn't pass, we're going to be on a mission to try to identify services that we're going to have to lose, period, and end of story. The reality related to our funding problem is if we don't tackle it now, because of the way that cost compounds with construction, it will run away from us in the next decade. So I'm not trying to scare anybody. It's a simple reality of our PCI index and what we can actually continue to maintain. That's why you're seeing streets getting paved that aren't in the worst condition. We don't have enough money to fix the worst streets because the construction cost is 3 times as much as it's doing a slurry seal. So we will have to cut services, and it's going to come at non-essential services because safety is our #1 priority, as the community has told us. So police and fire and dispatch are going to be at the top of the line. So where does it go? It goes to parks. It goes to the amazing services that are in this building. It goes to our aquatic center. It goes to all the non-essential services that our community provides, our cemetery district, that we provide to this community if we really want to fix that financial problem.
So I'm gonna start by saying I hope Measure F does pass. It's an opportunity to pass a measure that would exclusively focus on roads and would have a citizen oversight committee to make sure that the money goes where voters said it should. That's one of the things I've heard also when talking to folks is that, well, I approved this before and that's not where the money ended up. That won't be the case with this measure. And so I do hope that it passes. And I agree, this is not a scare tactic. This is just a fact. The roads are going to continue to get worse. If we don't pass this measure now, in another 5 years, they're going to be way worse. They're just going to continue to get worse and worse. And no amount of robbing Peter to pay Paul or taking money out of this bucket to put it in another bucket is going to change. That's currently being used for something else. Well, we still got to pay for what was in that bucket. So we can't just keep moving money around. In the long term, yes, we have to have development that will continue to support the roads. But in the short term, if we don't pass Measure F, we are going to be in loads of trouble.
Thank you. We're on our last question, question number 10, and Franz will be the first one if you want to just pass it to him. That would be the easiest. This is the last question, then we're open to audience questions. If any other people have a question, you want to hold up your cards. Kathy is there at the back. Probably be able to ask about 3, maybe 4 questions. Okay, question number 10, inclusivity in Benicia. Franz, you.
Thank you. So I believe that all people have the right to be heard and to be included. And I support initiatives, committees, proposals that seek to further our DE&I footprint. Proactively promoting these principles will draw in and empower people to participate. The city should support public events that help to promote these ideals. And I think that it's very important to make people feel at home and empowered and able to no matter what their creed, no matter what their background, to be able to feel heard, to feel included, and to participate. And one of the best ways to do that is through your vote. And so I encourage you, if there are people who you know who are not participating in this process, please encourage them to participate. That can be your way, my way of encouraging people to be included. Thank you.
So as a chair of our cure committee, which recently had to get disbanded because we didn't have enough budget to sustain the staff, our community United for Racial Equity, our sole purpose was to try to identify some social injustice that was taking place within our community. And unfortunately, we don't have that mechanism anymore. But what we were able to implement was actually a DEI training amongst all of our staff and our department directors to try to make sure that the unconscious bias that takes place in any workplace is well known, and we try to fix it. Now, the reality of our community is without a board or body like that, what we can do is, 1, prioritize social and cultural events that are representative of inclusion to make sure that people feel always welcome and safe in our community. 2, fostering better partnership and communication with our school district, because it too has the most diverse population amongst our citizenry that is actually within our community. And I'd say the last thing is making sure that we have art programs that are actually displayed in which would represent a diverse range of perspective and identity. And I just noticed that Tom's over there, so I'm going to say we're absolutely going to make sure that the crosswalk happens.
So as mentioned, I'm the founder of the Benicia LGBTQIA Network and recently was part of the ad hoc committee on the Arts and Culture Commission to develop the art diversity art installation. I will say it's probably going to be a crosswalk, but that should be coming before City Council very soon for approval. When my wife and I were looking for housing, we were looking in communities all over the Bay Area. We were looking for a community that felt safe and welcoming as a lesbian interracial couple. There were plenty of communities we drove through and did not stop at, but Benicia was immediately welcoming, immediately felt safe and inclusive for us. So one of the things, what I did see is that there was a gap in sort of the organizational structure for any LGBTQIA organization. So I started one. And so I feel like as community leaders, we have an opportunity to do outreach to people that don't look like us, that are maybe from a different socioeconomic background. And I think that we are an inclusive and diverse community, but we need to make sure that our leadership is participating in events like Fiesta Primavera. We need to make sure that we are doing those things as leaders.
So thank you for the question. As a first-generation American and a proud son of Latino immigrants from Nicaragua, Salvador, in Cuba, I know firsthand the importance of diversity and inclusivity. Benicia may not be perfect, but she is exceptional in her commitment to being inclusive. I love telling people I'm from Benicia because here, love, respect, and togetherness is our everyday reality. Our council has always prioritized inclusivity, ensuring that every decision they make made all residents, regardless of age, identity, income, gender, and so forth, have felt welcome and protected. And moving forward, I will support policies that make sure we commit to that vision, that goal, to ensure that everyone, including guests in our community, feel welcome and valued. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're now on to the audience questions. It looks like we'll have time for 2 or 3. We'll see how you do. These are 60 seconds. Okay. So Franz, I guess you're the first up. Were you not? No, you were first up on the last one. Sorry, Trevor.
All right, let's go.
Okay. The most vocal opponents to measures G, H, and F express opposition to any new taxes or fees because they claim distrust in our current and past city employees and council members, claiming irresponsible spending of our current budget. They often cite the Fitzgerald Field project as an example of wasteful spending. What is your opinion of the Fitzgerald Field project?
Yeah, great question. So that was actually a decision that was in front of our council when I first got on. And what I would tell you is, if a community organization wants to step up and raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to improve a city facility, I'm going to back it every day, every time. And if you've got a problem with our community identifying our funding priorities, then we just think differently. I think Fitzgerald Field is not only a historic landmark in our community, it is an asset that serves hundreds, if not thousands of children every single season. As a community member that coaches baseball in town, you can walk out there and see that ball field lit up almost every single night. And do I think that that was a bad decision? Absolutely not. And would I do it again? Absolutely.
I wasn't around when Fitzgerald Field, I mean, I wasn't on council when that was approved, but what I will say is I read a lot of the information about it. I read the state that it was in when it was being put to council to decide to spend that money. And it was a mess. And I also think that it, like, well, I'm not supposed to reference other people, like other people have said, is that it's needed to be, it's used. It's a community asset that's utilized all the time. And I also want to focus on the fact that it was a liability. We had grandstands that were falling apart. We have to make sure that we're balancing the liability of infrastructure that might cause problems. We might have people fall. We might have people slipping on grandstands that are falling apart. I think it was a good use of money. I understand that people have mistrust about the way that the council is spending money, but I really think that that was a good use of money.
So thank you for the question. At that time, I was on the council and I did vote to fund Fitzgerald Field, and I would do it again. Fitzgerald Field was the classic example of a community public-private partnership. There were funds allocated in our budget that wasn't going to impact anything else. You had the community that went out of their way to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. In this town, we take great pride in our historic assets, and Fitz was one of those. This is what you do with the taxpayer money. You invest back in the community. A project like this also speaks to what we can and should be doing at the local level when it comes to quality of life issues. Fitzgerald Field is more than just baseball. Fitzgerald Field is a place where our kids get together, our Benicians get together. They love it. And it's also a welcoming place for our guests in our community. It continues to bring people into this town, and that benefits everyone. Thank you.
Franz?
So thank you. So I was neither on the city council nor a member of the Benicia community at the time, unfortunately. But I will say that the city council does not operate in a vacuum, and that the city council should represent the will of the community. And so the investment of these funds to beautify and enhance and make this as a center was a community involvement. It was a response to of the city council at the time, responding to the need of the community, the voice of the community. In the community, it was a partnership between, so it was not a sole effort. And I think that that's very important. That's a very key element to being on the city council. I think some people might feel that city council members make rules and do as they want, but they're really just a reflection of the people. And the only reason, and if you do not agree with what the city council does, your tool is the vote. And we all know that, so you can vote the person that you do not feel is going to represent you, you vote them out of city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina has the first answer to this next question. How does Benicia fire and police staffing, equipment, and pay compare to other communities?
Ooh, this is a good one. It's lower. So in order to prepare for this, this campaign and in order to prepare for if I am elected to get onto city council, I wanted to be able to hit the ground running. So a lot of folks get elected and then they go meet with the city leaders, and I preempted that. I met with the fire chief, I met with the police chief, and I wanted to get an understanding of where they were feeling. And we have lost 5 police officers in the last year. They're just in 2024 alone. And most of those people have left because our salaries are lower than neighboring communities. I understand when you look at those dollars, if you look at the salary list and you see, wow, that's a lot of money. And it is. There's no getting around the fact that they earn a lot of money, but it is still lower than our neighboring communities. And that goes for the fire department as well as the police department. We spend a ton of money training our folks here, and then to lose them in a matter of a couple of years because we're paying $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 lower is just, we're doing a disservice to our public safety.
Lionel?
Is the question, how does it compare to neighboring communities?
Yes, it says, how does Benicia fire and police staffing, equipment, and pay compare to other communities?
Yeah, I don't know that exact number, but what I will say is that the number one priority in every elected body across this great nation, including Benicia, is public safety. And so there are 2 things that we need to balance. One, the budgets need to reflect the priorities as defined by the residents, and they put public safety first. But we also have to live within our means. And what I mean by that is we will do our best to pay not just police and fire, but all our employees as much as we can. But we have to make sure that we are, allocating, the spend across the board. That's my answer to that. Yeah.
Thank you, Lionel. So that goes to Franz.
Thank you, Lionel. This is a question that actually goes to several things that I feel that caused me to run for city council. So this is part of the foundation of what makes Benicia Benicia that we must protect. And not only are we facing a fiscal deficit now, but it's going to get worse in the future, just as we've talked about with the roads and so forth. Their pay is much lower, but not much lower, but it is lower than our neighboring cities. Most of the people on our forces don't even live in Benicia because they can't afford it. But who does? Some of the police officers and dispatchers and so forth from our neighboring cities. They live here in Benicia because it's a great place to live. In order for us to maintain the foundation, I'll say it again and again and again, of what Benicia is, we have to keep our safety, we have to keep our infrastructure, and we have to keep our way of life. Thank you.
Okay, there's a lot of parts of this question, so I'm just going to jump into it. So police staffing. So we're currently understaffed in our police department. We lose approximately 5 officers every year that transition to other departments within the region. Equipment, we actually have a police equipment replacement policy. So we've been very diligent of actually replacing our squad cars and all the tools and equipment which they need. We're actually decent there. Now the pay, an average police officer in Benicia makes somewhere around like $95,000 a year in comparison to like the greater area, which is about $115,000 a year on average. So we are far behind that. Now for fire staffing, we're understaffed related to our fire department. I think there's about 3 or 4 positions that aren't there. The equipment, we actually have a decent deal related to the state because our fire department participates into a wildfire emergency response. So there's some shared costs there with the state on our equipment. And then pay, fire's not tracking as low as police, but they're still underpaid. I don't have those specific numbers, but that's what.
Thank you. Wow. Gotta give you time to take a deep breath. All right, so here's our last question, although I just really want to say thank you to our audience. These are very thoughtful questions. Some of them overlap with things we've already asked, and so the team tried to select some things that haven't been brought up at all. We will present to the field of candidates all of the questions, and we'll ask you to look to their websites and other social media platforms to be able to see their responses to the question, because nobody has a name or contact information. So just as all the questions are being answered by all of them, we'll give them the opportunity to do that as well. So this is our final audience question. And
Why do I have to go first?
Oh. Sorry, because you're next on my list.
Yeah.
Okay, pensions.
Yeah.
Are the retirement pensions of Benicia more or less than other towns? And how do they impact the budget?
Okay. So when I was on the council, I anticipated the demands of our pension obligations. And that's why early in my first term, I initiated the creation and funding of an irrevocable pension trust to help mitigate the impact of our pensions going forward. To pay down the pension obligations we have, the city must continue to meet its obligations, because I believe we honor the commitments we've made to our past and our present employees. And so we have a trust, we continue to invest in it. We owe it to our employees to keep funding that. I mean, it's just part of the budget. We are a service business, and service needs people. And we have to do what we can to provide the salary and healthcare that they need to live and have decent wages.
Thank you. Hans?
Thank you, Lionel. So our pension is part of the package of what is going to attract top-notch talent to the city that we desperately need. We are not, although the rumor is that we pay these enormous pensions, and it may have been true in the past, it's not true going forward. So as we continue to pay down the long-term, the old-term pensions, the newer pensions are more in line with our neighboring cities. And this is something that obligation is still going to grow, and that's another, in order for us, again, to maintain the foundation of what we need, we have to not only meet our current obligations, we have to think about our future obligations, and the pension system is one of them. I think that the intent of the question back was, are we wasting money on our pensions? And my answer is no, because that is part of the package, the parcel to bring in talent to our city.
Could you just repeat the question?
Yeah. Are the retirement pensions of Benicia more or less than other towns? And how do they impact the budget?
So the simple answer to that is yes, and I'm going to tell you why. So because we have a higher employee staff turnover rate, it basically generates more participants in our specific pension program. Thus, we pay for more pensions than normal cities because people come through our organization more often. As a result, it costs us more money. In addition to the pension liability program and the policy that was created for that specific pension investment fund, that is a great resource, but we actually have only been able to make minimum payments because of our financial situation. The other thing that you need to know about pensions is we passed a fiscal spending policy. So any excess funds in which are generated over the year through staff vacancy or unused funds related to capital projects automatically get put into 5 buckets at the end of the year. One of them is pensions now. So it's another savings account to try to catch up with the unfunded kind of pension liability. The last thing I'll say about pensions is that the projection on our pensions actually looks better in 7 years, because the classic program at 55 is aging out of the system, and the new program of 62 for employees is when we will catch up. So the 7-year horizon related to pensions is in a positive direction.
This is going to be somewhat duplicative, but I will tell you, I don't know exactly if it's higher or lower than our neighboring communities, because I've only researched ours, not neighboring communities. But I do know that in the next 7 years, it's gonna be a little bit of a struggle for the next 7 years, but somewhere around 2031, our pension obligations will start to decrease. And we do have that little bucket of money, that savings account, that will continue to reduce the obligation. So anytime there is any extra funding, that's one of the buckets that money will go into. And so hopefully, like in about 2031, 2032, we'll start to see those pension obligations reduced.
Okay, thank you. I think we're ready to move on to our closing statements. There are, as I said, additional questions to be asked, but I think at this point, time-wise, that makes the most sense. There are 3 minutes for each closing statement. Trevor will begin.
So I want to tell you a little bit about what I see as the future of Benicia. I think the future of Benicia and the best days are still in front of us. I believe in a Benicia that has a thriving downtown, that has a pulse of activity, that's alive with music and people walking up and down the streets and participating in festivals and events in which our community curates, creates, and enjoys. I believe in a Benicia where there's more housing in downtown and more mix of restaurants and bars. And I believe in a Benicia where everybody has an opportunity to create a business because we've simplified the process. And so if you wanted to open one, it isn't cumbersome. I believe in a Benicia where there's an opportunity for existing businesses to continue to expand. And I believe in a Benicia that continues to provide housing opportunities so that my kids' one day might have an opportunity to enjoy this great community in which we've all come to love. I believe in a Benicia that has great opportunities for our school districts to partner with our city to try to create better facilities and actually allow us to utilize them as a community. And I believe in a Benicia that is better tomorrow than it is today. Thank you.
Yeah, I can breathe a little bit. So if I'm elected, I will bring a fresh set of eyes and a new perspective. It's on my yard signs, it's on the road signs you've seen everywhere. It's yellow, it's happy. In my opinion, if any of this was easy, it would have been done 5, 10, 20 years ago. We wouldn't be where we are today. And I will say that I have absolute respect for anybody who's ever served on council or for the mayor. I really think that people make the decisions in the moment that they feel are right in the moment. And so I want to make sure that we are appreciative of our city leaders, current and former, because this is not easy. And honestly, no one's getting rich off of being on city council. I promise you that. So this is a difficult job. And I will say I've never intended on running for office. This is my first foray into this, which is probably why I can't answer a complex question in 60 seconds. So, but I will say that there's things I'm good at. Answering a question in 60 seconds isn't that, but I am good at bringing teams together. I am good at balancing budgets. I am good at bridging gaps between people who don't necessarily agree with one another. To be on council, to bring a different perspective from a different background than some of our folks that have been here for 10 or 20, 30 years. I do feel like I'm well positioned to serve this community. Again, my name is Christina Gilpin-Hayes. I'm running for city council. My website is christinaforbenicia.com, and you can reach me via email at info@christinaforbenicia.com.
All right, well, thank you again to the league for hosting everyone and attending, and those still tuning in. Thanks for hanging in there with us. So as we approach this very important election, let's remember that Benicia thrives on diversity, not just in its people, but more importantly, its ideas. That's why it's crucial that the next council, our council, represents a wide range of views. And I'm committed to being a voice that brings balance and independent thinking to the table. I love Benicia. My kids goof on me when I call it Benicia, but this has been my home for 19 years. This is where I raised my family. I have 2 daughters, one that's still going through our school system. It's where my brother, 2 sisters, cousin raised their families. At any given point, there's over a dozen nephews and nieces running around this town. And it's where I've had the honor of serving this community in a variety of ways, including on the city council from 2018 to 2022. I understand the struggles of high costs, and I understand the frustration of being asked to pay more when you don't see the returns. And that's why, if you elect me to your city council, I'm going to focus on fiscal discipline, smarter economic growth, and a government that truly listens to its residents. If you want a council member who is going to respectfully challenge business as usual and work hard to keep our wonderful community on track, then I'm your candidate. I will work every day focused on the little things that are going to make your lives a little better. In the end, I want to make the city of Benicia more accessible and proactive so that it reflects the priorities that you have already defined for us and that we can serve our community better. If you want to reach me, you can visit my website at votelionel.com, or please feel free to call me anytime at 415-377-2872. My wife just is always mad at me when I give out my number, but seriously, it's been to the right people, to the right people. This has been an honor, and it's a privilege to sit at this table with wonderful folks. And thank you again, and God bless Benicia. Please vote Lionel R. Espada on election day.
Thank you, Lionel. My name is Franz Rosenthal. I'm going to stand up because it's quite a long time being sitting, plus with my enormous stature, you probably have trouble seeing me. So I want to thank everybody for coming here. This is my first time running for public office, and it's been a wonderful experience, and I do not regret it. And it's great to see the participation, everyone who was interested in the same things that we're interested in. The reason that all of us are up here is because we love Benicia, we love Venetians. We want to keep Benicia the way it is. People ask me, why do you want to run for city council? And nobody's going to like you. And I think that's even more true in this upcoming cycle. I think that the decisions that need to be made in order to, I'm very afraid that we're at an inflection point and we don't really realize it. And then it could be that in future generations they'll look back and say, at that point, before that city council was elected, that's where it all started to go wrong. And our deficit just got away from us, and and now all of a sudden look at Benicia today. And I can tell you that things can change from one day to the next. We've all had life experiences where that happens. So I would like to focus on increasing our base, which is our safety, our infrastructure, and our lifestyle. I believe that the path to that is not increasing our taxes more. We need to address the tax. We need to pass these resolutions that are on the ballot today to address our short term. Those are not long-term solutions. We need to really focus on efforts to increase our tax revenue. As I said, if you look at our tax streams compared to other cities in California, we are backwards in a lot of things. And what our biggest bang for the buck is going to be by increasing our sales tax revenue. And once we've done that, all these other budget concerns will all go away. And I think that bringing the perspectives that everyone on the city council, I don't want to say of the generation that we're from, we understand, I believe, that what is going to be required looking in the future. And I think that we understand that these decisions that have to be made and these policies that need to be implemented are not going to be popular, but we're willing to give it a try and willing to do what we need to do in order to preserve Benicia that I've come to love in these years that I've lived here. We loved it so much that we came with 2 children, and now we have 3. And they're all in the Benicia school system that we absolutely love. So my name is Franz Rosenthal. You may reach me at franzcitycouncil@gmail.com. My website is franzbeniciacitycouncil.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and thank you very much for your attendance. It's been a pleasure.
What a round of applause for our.
You know, I too am a resident of Benicia, and I believe in Benicia, and I love Benicia, just as all of these folks have talked about. And it gives me a real feeling of great pride that we have this caliber of people stepping forward to help guide this, provide leadership for the growth of our town. You can't take those things for granted. This is not an easy job, and it requires courageous leadership. It requires people of goodwill to come together and to think deeply about what this community needs. Now, it'd be wonderful if all of us had the same views, but we don't. So it's impossible to say that they're going to give everybody everything. That's just not going to happen. So you have to think deeply about what it is that you most value, what you believe Benicia needs. And that's how you'll come forward to make this very difficult choice of which 2 of these individuals will be sitting on city council next year and who you would want to be as the mayor of our town. This is a very important point. We've heard the word inflection point. I would agree with that. I think that's exactly what it is. So how is it that we, as part of the citizenry of Benicia, what part will we play in that story? And I really want you to think about that as you go to the polls on November 5th, or whether you vote by mail in advance, since everybody in California has that opportunity. We have some very important decisions in front of us. And I thank you all so much for being here because this speaks about you and what you believe and how you are participating in this very special community that we live in. People often talk about what they love, but I wonder what we're willing to stand up and do. It's not just what I feel, it's what my actions will say. And I will tell you, these folks are willing to step forward. That's what they're doing. And each of us in our own way need to do the very same thing because we can't put it all on the shoulders of those that we elect. We need to step forward in our own way and and whatever that works for you in this community. I'm so grateful to all of you for being here because it just reaffirms personally my belief that this is an incredible community to be part of. I'm proud that my children were raised here from their birth. I'm proud that I was a teacher in this school system for over 25 years. This is a community that we're invested in, and we are because of the kind of people that live here. So thank you. I want to also thank others. You know, these events don't just happen. I know a lot of people say, well, why don't you do another one on school board? Why don't you do one for, you know, that's all great and good. But I got to tell you that there's a lot of heavy lifting going on here. And I want to thank our library because they stepped forward in a very powerful way. It's because of Jennifer. She grabbed me. I just came back from 3 weeks in India and I was still a little bleary on it. And I was at an event at the library and she said, "Brian, could we do, would you be willing to, sponsor a forum?" And, even with jet lag, I said, "You bet." Because that is the work of the league. That is what we believe in. And that is how we help support our communities. And really, it's nationwide, the voter registration, but voter education is every bit as important as making sure people register. It's what they do and to make sure that they actually get to the polls and be able to exercise that right. So if you happen to know anybody in the age range of 18 to 24, just saying, this is the age group that has the largest growing demographic and the lowest participation rate. So poke any teenager or young adult that you see and say, hey, make sure you exercise that right, because you are standing on the shoulders of others who literally gave their life for you to be able to have that right. And I hope that they will do that. We also want to thank our partners in this work beyond the library. We want to thank the AAUW, who always are great. And, again, these things don't happen just overnight. They take a lot of thoughtful planning. And we thank you all for being participants in this work with us. Again, feel free the library will be posting this video that was live streamed, and so will the League of Women Voters. It'll be on our website. I think it'll be on our YouTube channel, but that's beyond my pay grade. So it's on something, so you'll be able to see it. And again, we thank you. We have some easy reader guides there if you happen to miss the proposition forum that we did last week and have some curiosity around the state propositions, which are written in Greek. I want you to feel free to look at the book. It gives you some unbiased information so that may help you make some choices. And with that, we thank you so much for coming this year. Thank you.
Good job.
Trying to find my.
Where did you take the president?
Let's try it. So was it worth staying up? You sleep again. Thank you guys for coming. Oh, we'll see you guys back in the house. You can hang out here. Time to head home, I guess. Thank you. Appreciate you.
You're awesome.
Thank you. During these things.